Hey y'all, what's up? This is Dartman. Welcome back to Fixing the Fish, and today we're going to be talking about baitcaster reels. If you've been into baitcasters for a while, I'm sure you've heard the debate on what makes the best baitcaster, what makes a good baitcaster. You'll see it all over the place, including YouTube. The first, most automatic answer that anybody gives is casting distance. A lot of people put a lot of value on casting distance for making one reel better than the other. And for me, that's not a huge deal. It is a facet of bass fishing. I do like having the ability to be able to put the bait where I want it. But realistically, I don't need a reel that'll cast the length of a football field. The only time I really need that kind of distance is on big lakes in the winter when I'm fishing for the bank, where I need to get that out, really far to where the fish are, trying to stay warm. But in the summertime, most of the time the fish are going to be up shallow, or unless it's really hot or they've moved off the bank into deeper water, and they'll usually be on the transition most of the time. But for a lot of bass fishermen, the benchmark for what makes a reel good is casting distance. And I think that's sort of the standard that a lot of people judge reels by these days, is how far it'll cast out. So a lot of people, they buy their first reel and, they get good with it and they start to cast with it, and they find that the distance is a little lacking, and they'll go and read a bunch of forums or watch videos, and, they'll see these $400 reels and get thinking, and they'll start to think that they need that. They need that to be able to fish for bass. That they're somehow being shorted by not having the furthest casting reel. And like I said, I'm not here to argue that casting distance isn't a benefit. It can definitely be a benefit. But before you go and spend a small fortune on a Metanium or, a high-end Daiwa or a Lose or something, you should check your reel settings and see if you're actually using your reel to its fullest potential. Because if your settings are too tight, you're not really using the reel at its maximum capacity. You're using it at the level that you're capable of using it. First of all, let's just talk about casting distance overall. Casting distance isn't just about the reel. Your line diameter, if you're casting thicker line, that's going to shorten your cast up. So if you don't need to have super thick line, if you're not fishing heavy cover, if you're not punching, you may want to think about lightening up the size of your line to something a little thinner. If you're fishing open water and you're not planning on catching a 10-pound bass, you really don't need to have 50-pound braid on your rod. You can go down a little bit, go to 20-pound. You'll notice that you get a little extra distance that way because that thick braid isn't casting out. Same thing with mono or fluoro. If you don't need to have super thick line, try to find the appropriate line strength for what you need. I'm not talking about pitching and flipping into cover and wood and stuff like that. That is an actual requirement that you have very strong line, but we're talking just generally open water in a pond or something. You don't need to have that super thick line unless you have a lot of slop or you have a lot of cover. So that's one way to help your casting distance out. The second one is matching up your rod. If you have a rod tip that doesn't flex enough for the bait you're throwing, in other words, the tip is too thick, too strong, doesn't load up enough on the cast, you're not going to get that catapult effect, where you're getting that transfer of energy. As you go back, the rod tip's bending that way, and then it's going that way. It's sort of launching it. So look at your rod. That's another thing that can really affect casting distance. And the last thing is user skill. That is the one thing that a lot of people don't really talk about. When you first started using baitcasters, I'm sure everybody's watched that video where they want you to turn your spool tension to where it's a controlled fall, where it drops like that. And they tell you to put your brakes on halfway or something like that. And there you go. You can see how much that affected that cast. So what you really need to be doing, if you've been using your rod like that for a while and you're not happy with how far you're casting, it's annoying you, you're thinking about upgrading, you may want to start trying to do this. You really need to start working on changing your settings and developing your skills. So what you want to do is you want to loosen up your spool tension to the point where your spool knocks just a little bit. Hear that knock? Then you want to tighten it until it goes away. You don't want it to knock too much because that'll make the spool unbalanced and you'll actually get a wobble and it'll shorten your cast. So now your spool is pretty loose and it should drop pretty quickly. Second thing you want to do is start turning your brakes down. And now, once you get to the point where you're down to 0 brakes, you'll notice that you're getting a significant increase in casting. I mean, look at the distance I gained by turning those brakes off. And it is a skill. A lot of people, they don't like to deal with the backlashes, and it's frustrating. And it can be frustrating, but it's a skill. And until you get to that point with your reel, you're really not using your reel to its full potential. You're using it at your potential at those settings. You may find that your reel can cast a lot further than you think. Because even on the lowest settings, the brakes, centrifugal, magnetic, they are slowing your cast down. You're not getting the full power of your cast. And you can just see how far I'm getting out there. I almost went to the edge of my property, and I'm still not giving it all the way. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you I'm the best baitcaster in the world. But I'm saying at one point I wasn't able to cast with no brakes, and this is how far I've gotten. It's a skill that I'm currently developing. And you can see the benefits are I'm just getting a lot further with my cast than I was with those brakes on. So it's a skill and it's important. And before you go dropping $500 on a new reel or something, maybe you should try to see how you can do without the brakes turned on. Just start gradually. If you have your brakes set halfway, go out, go fishing, turn them down maybe 1, 2. If you got centrifugal, turn 1 off. Just keep working your way down gradually until the point you don't really need your brakes anymore. And you'll find you may have a lot more distance in your reel than you thought. So anyway, that's my thoughts on distance and bait casters. I hope this helps you guys out. And until next time, thanks for watching.